Chapter 1. Accompanied by a mild but powerful whine, a gigantic silver torpedo rose slowly upward to hang 2,000 feet above the sugar cube huddle of central London. Over 300 yards long, it spread at the tail into a slim delta topped by two sharply swept fins. For a while, the ship hovered, as if savoring the air of its newfound freedom, its nose swinging smoothly around to seek the north. At last, with the sound growing, imperceptibly at first, but with steadily increasing speed, it began to slide forward and upward. At 10,000 feet, its engines erupted into full power, hurling the suborbital skyliner eagerly toward the fringes of space. Sitting in row 31 of C deck was Dr. Victor Hunt, head of theoretical studies at the Metadyne Nucleonic Instrument Company of Reading, Berkshire, itself a subsidiary of the mammoth Intercontinental Data and Control Corporation headquartered at Portland, Oregon, USA. He absently surveyed the diminishing view of Hendon that crawled across the cabin wall display screen and tried again to fit some kind of explanation to the events of the last few days. His experiments with matter-antimatter particle extinctions had been progressing well. Forsyth Scott had followed Hunt's reports with evident interest and therefore knew that the tests were progressing well. That made it all the more strange for him to call Hunt at his office one morning to ask him simply to drop everything and get over to IDCC Portland as quickly as could be arranged. From the managing director's tone and manner, it had been obvious that the request was couched as such mainly for reasons of politeness. In reality, this was one of the few occasions on which Hunt had no say in the matter. To Hunt's questions, Forsyth Scott had stated quite frankly that he didn't know what it was that made Hunt's immediate presence at IDCC so imperative. The previous evening, he had received a video call from Felix Borland, the president of IDCC, who had told him that as a matter of priority, he required the only working prototype of the scope prepared for immediate shipment to the USA and an installation team ready to go with it. Also, he had insisted that Hunt personally come over for an indefinite period to take charge of some project involving the scope, which could not wait. For Hunt's benefit, Forsyth Scott had replayed Borland's call on his desk display and allowed him to verify for himself that Forsyth Scott, in turn, was acting under a thinly disguised directive. Even stranger, Borland, too, had seemed unable to say precisely what it was that the instrument and its inventor were needed for. The trimagnoscope, developed as a consequence of a 2-year investigation by Hunt into certain aspects of neutrino physics, promised to be perhaps the most successful venture ever undertaken by the company. Hunt had established that a neutrino beam that passed through a solid object underwent certain interactions in the close vicinity of atomic nuclei, which produced measurable changes in the transmitted output. By raster scanning an object with a trio of synchronized intersecting beams, he had devised a method of extracting enough information to generate a 3D color hologram, visually indistinguishable from the original solid. Moreover, since the beams scanned right through, it was almost as easy to conjure up views of the inside as of the out. These capabilities, combined with that of high-power magnification that was also inherent in the method, yielded possibilities not even remotely approached by anything else on the market. From quantitative cell metabolism and bionics through neurosurgery, metallurgy, crystallography, and molecular electronics to engineering inspection and quality control, the applications were endless. Inquiries were pouring in and shares were soaring. Removing the prototype and its originator to the USA, totally disrupting carefully planned production and marketing schedules, bordered on the catastrophic. Borland knew this as well as anybody. The more Hunt turned these things over in his mind, the less plausible the various possible explanations that had at first occurred to him seemed.